Hello, Brent Bergherm here. Thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to be looking at the best of 2019 and how I this is the whole process. So how I went through the whole thing really easily in Lightroom, and then I've got them separated out right now into a collection, and I've got to whittle that down. So right now, let's just dive into Lightroom and let's see where we're at, and then we'll take it from there. All right, in Lightroom, you can see I've got two main hard drives. I've got my photo catalog with my raw scans. That's what I call all of my raw shoot that I haven't edited yet. I haven't made my selects out of them yet. And then here's my photos. This is like everything that is my photo catalog. And so when I'm in the library module, I can come on up here to this idea that says metadata. I can choose a date, and then I can go by year. So let's get rid of 2016 and let's just go to 2019. And then what I did here is I just went through all these 2019 photos, and I then went and added them to a collection. So with this, then let's go on down to this collection. So here's my best of box sets. So I'm going to end up making this a box set of images that I print. And so this is going to have kind of like a two-pronged approach here. So it's going to not only be my best of 2019, but it's also going to be the best of 2019 that is made into prints, and so then I'll sell limited edition box sets on my website. I do have one more major shoot happening this year. I'm going to Unalaska Island here in December, so it's about a month away from when I record this. So I have most of the work done. It's just I might be adding to it when I get back from that trip. And that's the last trip I'm pretty sure I'll be having. So it should just be that last one, and then I'll wrap it up with that at the end. But it's good to get this work done now because there's still a mountain of work to do. I've got all these different paper types that I'm going to be testing these on and making sure that I have good images, wonderful top quality prints coming out for these top quality images here for 2019. There's also a couple things I should probably run through. What are my criteria for selection? Well, initially, when I went through all of those images in my catalog for all of 2019, I was just looking for the things that really kind of piqued my interest. Something that for me was like, yeah, that's a keeper. There's something there that means that image is top notch. Maybe it was something emotional about that image. I remembered something special about the experience of shooting that image. Maybe it's something about the image as it in and of itself, where I like the texture, I like the shapes, I like whatever else going on in that image. So there's a variety of reasons for why I chose the images initially. And now I've got 86 photos to whittle down. My goal is to go somewhere from 8 to 15 photos, somewhere in that frame of how many I choose to be my final selects for 2019. One thing I did notice came through a lot here on these images, and that is ice and snow, water. These are some themes that are really rising to the top of what I shoot. And of course, I already knew that. It's interesting to take a bit of a retrospective back through the year and take a look at that and how it came through. But now I need to set some goals. What is my intent for what makes the ultimate keeper image? And that's going to be something where I believe is going to take shape as I work through these images. I wanted to record this video so I could share with you the whole process of what's going on here, because certainly creativity is a process. And if I can share that with you and show you the idea of what I'm going through, maybe something will inspire you. Maybe you can give me some feedback about a better way of doing something, or maybe I missed the mark on something. And it's about sparking conversation, and it's about sharing the process of creativity. Let's dive back into Lightroom and continue on. So with all these images, I'm going to go ahead and hit Tab on the old keyboard so I can get rid of those side views. And there's just so many black and whites too, I'm noticing. And then I see, an oddball like this one where I was testing out the Fuji X-T3, and I was able to go out and grab this beautiful shot with a star tracker. So this is actually several minutes long, so 400 seconds, and it's mounted to a star tracker. And the first time I shot that star tracker, so as I zoom in, you can see those star trails they're not perfect, but they're really, really, really close. And so because they're not perfect, that's probably something that would take this out of this collection. I am definitely looking for something that is perfect. And if I can't have something perfect, then it doesn't belong in this set. Now, of course, what defines perfect? What sets that up to be considered perfect? That's, again, part of what we're going to be talking about here. But I start here back in February, I think it is. I was in Montana, heading on up to Banff National Park. And I got a couple of these images from this creek, which was, what was it, Yak River or Yak Creek, something like that. And it was just a lot of fun to shoot this stuff, because the challenge of the winter landscape, the challenge of driving there and just finding the right location and getting things that'll work, there's a lot of backstory to this. And for me, there's a lot of memory here. But I also need to think about, too, an image like this. Does this really speak to anyone besides myself? Probably not. Whereas this one might, and this one probably does. This one might, and this one maybe. But these images certainly speak to me, but they may not speak to someone else. So I do need to kind of think about that in a quasi commercial sense, kind of an idea. But when I do a boxed set like this also, I'm going to be writing a little paragraph that goes along with each photo. And so the story will come along with the image. And I think that's going to add value to whoever purchases these, if any of them sell. And then also I need to think about, what am I going to do with a panoramic? How am I going to treat that in my boxed set? Am I going to make an exception for a panoramic? Am I going to crop it differently, or whatever the case is? I just don't know yet. Again, this is about the process of creativity. Here we get up to Banff area, and one of the first shots from that area. The black and white really helped with the textures, with the feeling of scale and space, and that atmosphere coming through. The black and white really helped that come together, I think. And then the forms, the shapes, the overall tonality, these things are very, very evocative of just some kind of emotional, it sets me on a different emotional plane, I guess is how I would describe this. And then this image, this was so fun to create, but also with that wispiness of that cloud, the wind-blown clouds up above, set against the very rugged frozen. Lots of good stuff going here. And then the beautiful color. How am I going to treat color in this collection? Because as we could see initially, a lot of black and whites are coming through, and all of a sudden I've got some color. So a lot of decisions to make on all this. And here's another one that probably would be served better as a black and white as well. I just liked the nature of what was happening there, with how that tonality is coming through, the few highlighted pieces, and then the texture and the frozen nature of it all. It's all good. And this just tells a magnificent story about Lake Louise and the people as you're walking across the lake to the other side, and the backdrop and what it's just absolutely gorgeous. I'm pretty sure this one is going to be an absolute keeper, but I'm just trying to do an initial overview right now. This one versus this guy over here. Let's select this and look at these two side by side. There's just a different quality to this. Now it's cropped a little bit differently. And so there's something too. Am I going to be consistent in my cropping in my box set, or am I going to allow for various croppings? Well, and then I've got this image too. So far this one is really my favorite, but I love this one too. Maybe this one not so much. I don't know yet. All right, if we take a look at this one, this is in the Palouse region. I met up with some podcast listeners and went and shot for a day with them in the Palouse area, and this is just one of the things we came across. I think this was the first shoot I had for the Sony a6400. This is from a place in California just outside of San Francisco, so just across the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco area. Here we are out on one of the piers. If I were to lift the camera up, you would see Alcatraz. And I love the texture. I love the depth. I love the feeling of the water, the feeling of decay. the fact that it's center balanced, all these things I think are delightful. And then just some details here in Walla Walla, Washington, where I'm going around in some of the back alley areas and taking a look at just basically what we have here. And then here's another one where I have a new camera basically, and I'm just trying it out. And so with the pipes, I really just liked the pattern that was going on there. And then how they, over this painted over and filled in this entryway basically, and just totally reworked the building. But we have this remnant of the past where we have this archway over this doorway or this window area, and it just intrigued me, so I figured I would make a shot and test out this camera. But again, I really liked it, so it made it, at least for the first cut, in this collection. And this next image here, this is one of my first images also with the Fuji X-T3. And I really liked some of the subjects on this camera. I ended up returning this camera, but I just loved how the texture is coming through. This is along the Oregon coast. And then here's another picture along the Oregon coast, and how we have this cave, and you can see way in the background there's this light coming through, so the water is able to splash on in, and we get some really cool effects happening with the water coming into this cave. All right, then more over at the Oregon coast, playing with some motion on the water, getting a feel for the location. This is just, let's see, it's a little bit south of Shore Acres State Park. And here's Cape Arago Lighthouse way out there in the distance. But I loved the textures. I loved the clouds. Just the way everything came together just really worked well. Just really liking it. Another of the Cape Arago Lighthouse. And then here is Yoakum Point. This is a magnificent place to get out to. And I really loved, again, the mixture of water and rock texture and just the different things that are going on here. All right, we already talked about this one a little bit. That's probably going to not make it. We'll see. You can see also some of these down here I have some flags, and I don't have any of the numbered, so I can like hit 1 or come back here and hit 1, let's say, if I don't think it's really going to make it so much, whereas a 5 is like ding ding ding, yes, I need that. So I'll probably start doing that, and then I'll go back and fill in some of these here. So I think that's a 1. This might be a 2, maybe a 3, we'll see. We'll put this at a 3. In this one, we're in Nebraska, and I really just loved how the Platte River, I think it's actually technically the North Platte River, is coming through, and we're just seeing the wonderful texture. Now, I have a lot of these, though, because I couldn't make up my mind, and what am I going to do? So I think this one really is a 5. I like how it's just offset a little bit. I might need to still work it a little bit because I've got quite a bit of what feels to be blown highlights, but I know I've got enough room there in the raw file that I can make that work. See, that's really good too. So I'm going to let this survive to the last round. Oh, that one too. My goodness, so much good stuff. This one, I think I'll put that at a 3, and I'll probably put that at a 3 as well. And then in the same area there in Nebraska, where I've got 2 subtly different images, I'm going to put that one at a 5, maybe a 4. Here we are back again. So I then took some people on a workshop and took them to the same location and got a few pictures. So I'm going to put that at a 5, that one probably at a 4. Now this one's not processed, so what we could do is, since we probably want to judge it the same way, I'll go ahead and select all of these that I got here, and we will process them all the same, so now they can be judged equally. I just love the energy in that water, but it's still something where I say, is it too cliche? Is it good for me? Is it whatever? And then I've got this foam back here. I'm not sure I like this foam stuff and how it's coming together, Whereas in this image, that's really reduced. The presence of this foam is reduced. And then this, there's a lot of good energy here, but it's not all just, splashy type stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one at a 5 so it can compete head to head with that other one when it comes to final judgment. All right. Yeah, that one's pretty nice too. It's a tighter crop, but this is all right too. Good stuff in here. I'm going to go ahead and do a 4 for these. And then this one, yeah, let's go ahead and run that one as a 5. And then this one is along the Pistol River area, again on the Oregon coast. And this is an image, or a focus stack, I should say. And I did a little bit of an image blending there. And I'll at least make it a 4. As I zoom in here, you can see this is coming a little bit out of focus. But the reason I decided to keep it was it just didn't feel terribly unnatural, because this is a supporting element to the overall image. And if this were all detailed, your eye would probably be pulled down here rather than kept up in here. It's fine to get this a little bit, but since there's no detail, you're right back up. All right, at the there's a lighthouse out there, was it Cape Blanco, I think it was, and this is with the Olympus camera that I rented for that week. I'm going to run this at a 3, maybe a 4 actually. That's a 3. This is definitely a 4, maybe a 5. I'm going to put this one at a 4. Secret Beach. Oh, lots of good stuff here. And so we can see on this one, I did a little bit of exposure blending where I brought in just a little more life to the image. So I'm going to put that at a 5 too. I'll make a decision. Do I like this with a touch of detail, or do I prefer the starkness that this one has? Very, very high contrast, very filled in, and we don't have those details. Same kind of idea here where we have the nice, a little bit of details in those shadow areas. Long exposure for sure. Nice clear day. Roughly 4-ish in the afternoon, somewhere in there. Man, there's so many tough ones to choose from. I'll make that a 4 as well. Cape Sebastian area, again along the coast. One of the few color ones. I don't think this would make too much sense in black and white. I also have a square-ish format, and I got a bird in this one, and that just is kind of cool too. Right now I'm going to put them at 4. All right, here we are at Shore Acres, and lots of good ones. I'm just using that, what is it, the 10 stop I think I've got going on there. And I just came across this one the other day, or earlier this morning actually, and I just loved the S-curve going on here. The fact that I have a wave splashing on this rock way out here. Whatever, is going on here with the solidness of the rock, and then all the soupiness of the ocean. And then I got some others, rock standing up over here too. It's just good stuff. Between these two, I think I like that one better. So I'm going to put these at a 4. And then as I'm picking my images too, I really don't want to do a whole lot that are really similar. So like between this and this, I have to make a decision. Which one of these do I really like better? A little bit more zoomed out so the leading lines in the foreground are stronger. And if I wanted to, I could still crop this out and be fairly successful. That would be fine. Because see, when it's cropped out, I like that. I just liked the idea of more leading lines over here too. So I think for now, I'm going to put that at a 5, and I'll put this at a 4. That probably really deserves a 3. And then this one, the thing that caught me about this image was this branch coming out like this tree, I should say. And then it has its own little thing going up here like this. That's awesome. And I wanted to emphasize that. And I was tempted to zoom in even further, but then I was like, the whole thing about this image is the whole thing. And so I decided to zoom back out, and I grabbed this image. I guess I better put a marking on that, 5. And I really love this. We're back on the Olympus with this one, the 7mm lens, 7-14. And that's one of the workshop participants walking through. And I was like, yeah, this is perfect. And I really just loved it. I'm not sure it makes the cut for the final one. And then I really had a great time with them also when we were looking at the lighthouse at night and doing some light painting. Really came through super well. I'm going to give this one a 4. I'm not sure how this fits in with the rest of the grouping, and that's one of the things when I'm selecting a best of and I'm making a box edit, a box print, I'm kind of doing a little bit of a balance between these are the absolute best image regardless, but also do they play nice with the other images? Because I tend to like to have collections of things, collections of images. And for some reason, this texture just spoke to me. I'm going to give this one a 4 right now. And here we are, the beach down at Face Rock in Bandon. And this one I wouldn't say is finished processing, but we're pretty close. And there's just something about this image that really speaks to me. So I'm going to give it a 5. And between these two as well, I'll make that a 5 and that a 4. All right, here we go with some Palouse Falls. These were taken just a few weeks ago and really liked the variety I got here. This one's more of a standard, composition that you would expect, where this one, the falls, is right in the center. But I like it because it gives us so much more to the story over here. I've got the trail that you can walk along for the rim, and then we've got the cliff's edge, kind of an idea going there, versus here you hide all that stuff and you don't see that. So it just tells a completely different story between these two images. I'm going to go 5 on this one, and I think I'm going to go 4 on this one. And the difference between these two, where I'm bringing in more detail down here and not so bright up here, that's really, I'm really starting to like this edit now. So I'm going to go ahead and try and bring that back up with a 5. All right, this is with my Sony a6400. It is an exposure blend, or I should say a 2-frame blend. One where I put my thumb over the image to block out the sun so I wouldn't get all the flare going on like crazy, and it helped control it a little bit. I think I'm still only going to make it a 4. All right, we're nearing the end. This is the upper falls of the Palouse Falls area, and lots of good things in the upper falls. Yes. Let's make that one a 5. This one a 4. Also a 5. And I'll probably make this one I don't know. 4 for this one, 5 for this one. I just like the texture of the water a little bit better here. And then the last image here, this one is probably going to be a 4. All right, now what I want to do, I'm going to say equal to, greater than or equal to, and then I'm going to do 4 stars. So I can grab my 4 and 5 stars. All right, when I did those filtering, I got 48 images left out of the 86, was it, original images. So I didn't cut too many out. But one thing I can tell is happening in this set, black and white is a big time theme that's really strong for 2019. And I kind of knew that would be, because as I ended 2018, I pretty much made a mental thought. I was like, I really just like this black and white. And if you haven't seen photography by Michael Kenna, you really should look him up. I've been kind of following him a little bit, and there's been a lot of, I don't know though that I can say explicit influence, but definitely I'm inspired by his work and the simplicity of his work. And it's all beautiful black and white imagery. And I think I'm going to end up continuing in that way. And I think I'm going to end up continuing with that a little more here in 2020 as we get ready for next year. But I'll worry about that in a few weeks as far as setting my goals for what I have for 2020. But what we're looking at with these images, I kind of sort of think I probably should just get rid of the color images, because the black and white, that will help tie a theme together a bit more strongly than having the random color image here and the random color image there. There's some great color images, and I just don't think I have enough to make a color set and a black and white set. So I'm going to go ahead and whittle it down to see just my black and whites. So I don't think I'll be missing anything, but let's take a look and see where we're at here. And what I mean by missing anything is I don't think I'll be missing anything by taking out the 4 stars, but let's just see what we got going on here. So with this image, this one, and this one. All right, let's take a zoom in and really see the detail. I'm looking at a 1-to-1 preview here now. I've got some really, really good detail here. And what I think I'll do is I'll bring this back so I can see my histogram as well. And then when I come over here, we can see it peters out. So what have I got? ISO 100 f9 and 1/4 of a second versus f6.3. It's a little more open, but then 1/8 of a second, a little less time. So it's really similar exposure. So it really comes down to, do I like it zoomed in or do I not like it zoomed in? I think I'm going to go with the not zoomed in because it tells a little more of the story about the river, and I think that's what this image is about. It's an equal story that is the river and its bank, and it's not just a story about this tree. If it were a story only about the tree, and I was moved more that way, then I would probably choose this image, but I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. So I'm going to demote these to 4 stars a piece, and because I'm filtering it must be 5 or greater, whatever, then they just go away. They're still in the collection, they're just not in this filtered view. All right, now this image, I still really like that, so I'm going to keep it around for one more round. Now these images here, we recall going through these and what was a better image. I think I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one. There's just more attitude in this image. I find this to be more attitude anyway, whereas this image, it's pretty and all, but again, I get distracted too much by this foam back here. Love the archway, but I get the archway in this image. I just have I feel a lot more attitude in this one, a lot more meaning in that one. So I'm going to go with this image here. I really like the rustic nature of this item here. It's not really a natural form though. That might be another thing where pretty much everything else I have is the natural world, and then here's this one man-made object. It may not fit simply because of that. So let's see how we're going. We'll leave it in for now. I'm down to 17 photos. All right, so here we have a choice to make. Do we like it with a little more detail or a little less detail? What I'm probably going to do is go with a little more detail, but then I'm going to add a little extra brightness to those whites because I can see on my histogram we don't have them too terribly bright. And this is already a TIFF image, so I would want to probably go back to the originals and modify that just a hair if that's something that's important to me. All right, on this one, yeah, lots of good stuff still coming in on this one. I do like that. Let's double check our sharpness. I don't know, this foreground element, for some reason it seems like it could be sharper. I should probably go ahead and let's check some of these other images that didn't quite make the cut at 4 stars, and are they sharper? That's a tough one, but it does seem that this slightly darker image is a hair sharper. Now, this is a TIFF image, so with that being said, that means it's a It's an exposure blend, exposure averaging to get the extra long exposure coming out of here. So what I can do, if I had some very slight movement in the camera, that's what would cause this to not be rendered as sharply. And so I can go in back into Photoshop and I can fix that real quick and easy. So I think I'll leave that one in, and I'm going to have to make a mental note to jump into Photoshop and fix that real quick and easy. All right, this one, yeah, that one still makes the cut. There's just something that I find exciting. Now, I might still crop it differently, but I just still find it a little more exciting than some of the other images. You know, this one, for some reason, it's starting to not float my boat too much. I don't know if it's because it's competing with this one. So as I compare these two images together and put them side by side, you know, this one has that man-made structure in it as well. This one feels just a little more, I guess, rugged or whatever. I do have something here. I'll have to inspect that, see if that's a man-made pole or if it's a tree. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with this image, and I'm probably gonna get rid of this image. So I'm gonna demote this to 4 stars, and then I'll go back to here, and I'm gonna see, okay, that's just a log. That's fine. All right. Yep, definitely still gonna keep this one. Now these I would have to turn to black and white, but I'll come back to these in just a moment. Oh boy, I'm at 15 pictures. I think I'll keep that other one because, again, I really like how the cliff's edge is coming in here. It just tells a better story for me. Now this one, if I were to convert to black and white, that would make a lot of sense. That would be fine. And the reason I like this one over this one is because this one up here, I've got that big blank sky. Don't really care for that, actually. So I'm going to get rid of that image. And this one, so let's move this one to black and white. Yep, that certainly works well. I'll have to crop this element out here, I think. I think that's just a little too annoying. And that will emphasize this area here. I'm really looking forward to that. And then finally, whether or not I'm going to keep this image. It's a beautiful image, but it just doesn't strike me as the other ones do. It's not, although it has some greater simplicity. I wish this were an easy process. Let's translate this one. Oh, that just doesn't work. You got to have that color. You got to have that blue color for this one to work. Let's increase my contrast a little bit. Something like that as a starting point, but still, that blue just makes it very, very different of an image. And would it be okay to have it still in the collection, just a little bit of blue? Well, I don't really care for this one as much anymore. So let's grab this one. So it looks like I'm going to have a nice selection of all horizontal images that are natural landscape type images. I'm down to 12. That was kind of what my target goal was. So let's demote that one since it's not a natural object. Now I'm down to 11. So let's review these one more time. That still really works for me. Oh man, this one really works for me too. I really worked this scene over, and I really became pleased with how this came out. That's really nice. And again, with this one, with just the attitude and all that's happening right in this area, plus all the beautiful, beautiful texture that's going on. Wonderful, lots of wonderful good stuff in this particular image. Good items here. Just reviewing again, I might need to brighten up those highlights, but I can go back to the originals and grab those out and redo that image if I need to. And this one, it didn't feel as sharp as it could be, so I might have to either choose a different one or I'll go into Photoshop and take a look and see what's happening there. So I decided to go ahead and just edit it here in Photoshop so I can just show you what exactly I'm talking about. So this is a smart object. I open it up and I've got these stacked items, and because of the way I have it doing the stack mode, it does what we call exposure averaging. And that's where when I zoom in, so let's get to 100% here. When I zoom in on this, we have fairly decent sharpness happening, and you can see how that feels. Now what I want to make sure is happening is that only the sunlight is moving, not the actual object itself. So I'm going to zoom in even more and say look at just one of these little tiny tidbits of detail, and it looks to me like the whole thing is shifting. And when you have that going on, that can cause problems for your image. So we do have a little bit of movement that I just have to correct for, and that's what's causing the extra blurring to happen in the overall image. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and create a mask on this image. I'm going to get the brush tool, and it's black, and I'm going to make it bigger, a little bit soft on the edge. And then I'm just going to grab everything that isn't water, and I'm going to paint over it. I can do all this too, because the water parts, those are the pieces that are super duper important. Oops, let's go ahead and do like that. Grab that element, grab that element, grab the details closer out here on these items. Don't think I got anything out here with a bigger brush, but I'll do the smaller brush first. And then I'll go back bigger. Now you can see I have a little bit of a challenge here because some water is starting to come in and it's brightening up that area, but of course it's being all averaged out. So I think what I'll need to do is I'm going to invert my colors with the X, and I'm going to make it really soft brush and make it kind of big. And now I'll just bring it back and have a nice soft transition. So all the stuff here now that I'm bringing back, that won't be blocked out. Okay, now here's the mask out here. Well, let's X this again. Nope, that's all right because I have the water down here, so that's all good. And now all I gotta do is grab Option, and then I click and drag down. And with that being done, it did change the nature of the picture some. Did we see how some of these areas here? So I don't like, that was a little bit too much. So we'll just delete those masks. And I'll come back into here with my same white brush, super smooth and soft. I think that was going to work. Let's see. So Option. Yeah, much better. So let's see. Lots of spaces up here still, and then a couple of spaces down here. This is where the water has splashed, and I want to continue having that effect. So I then want to be able to just copy it down to every layer. So that's fine. We just got to make sure we're getting it covered. Okay, and then there was some up here too. All right, now let's grab this. Oops, let's do the Option. All right, one last tidbit right in here. Still on white, and I can just paint right in here. Very good. Now, excellent. There was a slightest of changes there, but I'm going to be okay with the slightest of changes. Certainly we expect a big change in the water. Let's just take out, yeah, let's just do that. Perfect. Okay. Now what this is only allowing to happen is for this area where it's black, it's only allowing this image to come through. And then that saves from the mistake I made when I was there shooting this picture and I allowed the camera, for some reason, probably the wind blew it or something, and it just tilted just ever so slightly. Oh, I've now fixed that problem. So we need to save this smart object, and then we will close this file out, and then we will save the main file, and then we'll see you back in Lightroom. All right, so as I zoom back into this, I get a little sense of just a hair sharper, which is wonderful. That's the way I like it. Okay, lots of images from the Oregon coast. I wish this one could still work out, and maybe it can, because we've got the black and white adjustments here. And if I were to take the blues and bring it somewhere in the middle between the rock and the ocean, it just doesn't seem to make sense, because this is still a lot brighter here, and then this is darker, of course, because of that. So it just doesn't seem to make sense. So I think I might have to either get rid of this image or accept the fact that I'm going to have one in color. What would happen if I were to just desaturate it quite a bit? And that blue is so barely faint. That might work. Now, I'm just going to get rid of this image for this collection. So I'll demote it to 4. And now I'm down to 10 images. All right. So 10 really tight images. Not too many outings are represented here. I have so many more outings that don't rise to the level of making it happen. You know, nothing from my February trip up to Banff, which kind of disappoints me, because that Mount Rundle image, I never came back here to give these some stars in the first place. So like this one, for now I'm gonna make it a 5-star. I said I would come back to these and I totally forgot. So I'm going to do a quick consideration for these. There we are. Now I'm back up to 15. So this creative process is a little messy sometimes. Sometimes we forget, sometimes we have to go back and forth. All right, so I'm going to pause the video here, and we'll come back after I've made my final selects. This is such a hard decision, and let's just come back once I make my final selects. So after going through the images just a little bit more, I have settled on what I am going to call my first cut, or my first solid look at, these can go forward to the next level, to the next stage. So let's take a look in Lightroom and see what I'm talking about. I've decided to go ahead and keep these 2 panorama images that I have in here, and I'm going to print the images in the neighborhood of 11 by 16 inches, or at least that's going to be the overall framing that I'm going to give them. I might go ahead and crop it down to 11 by 14 simply because that's a better crop for standard framing and the like, but either one will fit on the 13 by 19 paper that my printer can print to. So an image like this I've left uncropped, and I'll just size it in Photoshop when I get there. This image is also a TIFF, and I have decided I'll go ahead and just size it in Photoshop when I get there as well. This one I did crop to the 11 by 16 format. This one is a panoramic, so I'm going to size it in Photoshop when I get there. I'll just make it 16 inches tall and let it go with however wide it's going to be. Maybe I'll make slight cropping adjustments once I do get into Photoshop, but I'll leave those decisions to that stage when I'm in Photoshop. On this one, I've processed it just a little bit differently. I added a little bit of a graduated filter on the bottom part to bring down the tonality of the water just a hair, and then also to increase the contrast in the water. I then gave it an extremely slight vignette, and I liked how that basically wrapped up this image really well. This image was pretty well wrapped up. I just needed to crop it to that 11 by 16. And then here, this one's slightly different too because of the cropping change. This one's a TIFF, so I will crop it in Photoshop when I get there, but I did brighten the water just a hair, and I really liked how that came out. On this one, it's also a TIFF, so I'm going to crop it in Photoshop when I get there. This one I modified the contrast just a little bit, the exposure overall, the contrast overall, because when I had done the initial change in the develop module, I had just copied settings from a different photo and I really hadn't settled in on what I would do with this image, and now I have, so things are pretty good, looking pretty good there. Here's another one. All it needed was the final little bit of an adjustment on the crop. Same here, and same here, although I did adjust the exposure. I darkened this wall back here a little bit. I then darkened the water in the foreground a little bit, and I added a little bit of clarity, which helped the texture in the water come out a little better. And then I added a little bit of a smidge of a dodging, or I should say burning, coming into the water areas here. So we had a little more texture, just very, very slight, little bit of texture coming in here. So that wraps up this stage of the process. Now, I'm going to talk about these on my podcast, and I will tell you more about the stories behind these images on my podcast. I'm going to then create another video once I have everything said and done from my Alaska images. I will have the final rendition, everything coming together. I will show you the printing. I will show you everything when it comes to bringing those images from Alaska into this set. Will it mean that I get rid of a couple images here? Possibly it will, because already I'm at 14 images and I'm a little bit over. I was going to allow myself to go to 15, but I'll probably have a couple of images from Alaska, I'm hoping, crossing the fingers, where I'll be able to say, these images just rock the world, and holy moly, I got to get rid of some of these others because they just don't hold up. So that is the hope, that is the desire anyway, that I can have a really tight-knit group of just really awesome images for the year 2019. And thank you for watching. Check out the two podcasts I have. We've got the Latitude Photography Podcast, where I talk about all things related or of interest to a travel and outdoor photographer, such as myself. And then I'm a part of the Master Photography Podcast, which is a roundtable looking at all different genres, all different types of photography. And it's just a wonderful, everything is there. We've got 5 people in the group, and it's just a wonderful roundtable discussion when we have all these different topics that we're talking about photography related. And in connection with the Latitude Photography Podcast, I'm going to have a big announcement coming out here probably just after the Thanksgiving break, and stay tuned for that. I hope to see you there. Until next time, happy shooting.